$100 million to anyone who can get me out of jail!
Victor Duval's hands were shackled, his face cold and unyielding. He was a man who had lived a life of untold wealth, power, and brutality. His empire was built on drugs, violence, and manipulation, a world where he ruled with an iron fist. But now, as the final gavel struck, his world came crashing down. The courtroom buzzed with the whispers of onlookers and reporters. The walls seemed to close in on Victor as the judge declared him guilty of the crimes that had earned him a reputation feared by all. His empire had crumbled, and now so had his freedom. His future seemed grim. Imprisonment, perhaps for the rest of his life, was inevitable. But for Victor Duval, no situation was without an opportunity. As the guards moved in to take him away, Victor's steely resolve remained unbroken. The chains that bound his hands would not bind his mind. His gaze swept over the crowd, a look that could freeze anyone who dared meet his eyes. Then, with a deep breath and unwavering confidence, he shouted, $100 million to anyone who gets me out of here. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. $100 million, Victor repeated, his voice cutting through the chaos of the courtroom. Whoever gets me out of this prison will be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. No matter who you are, I will pay you $100 million if you get me out. No one can stop me. The crowd fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Reporters scrambled to record every moment. The underworld, which had long whispered his name in fear and awe, now stirred with the promise of unimaginable wealth. News of Victor's bold offer spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the criminal world and beyond. But as the hours passed, one thing became clear. Escaping Victor Duval would be no easy task. The risk was high, but the reward was impossible to ignore. $100 million, a fortune that could change lives, destroy enemies, or rebuild empires. No one could resist the lure of such a fortune, but many would fail to grasp it. As Victor's announcement echoed across the city, the underworld took action. Multiple groups began plotting, each thinking they could be the one to break him out. But the true nature of the task soon became apparent. Each attempt was met with failure. A group of Victor's old associates, led by Marco and Julian, took the first swing. They had once been trusted members of Victor's empire, and now they believed that with enough firepower, they could liberate their former boss. Their plan was simple: break through the outer defenses, get to Victor's cell, and transport him out. But things quickly spiraled out of control. As they breached the outer fence of the prison, they encountered heavy resistance. The guards were well prepared for any disturbance, and soon, gunfire erupted in all directions. Elena, quietly monitoring the operation, watched with a detached interest. She knew it was only a matter of time before this group failed. They were too reckless, too outgunned. They couldn't make it past the prison's inner defenses, and within moments, the operation fell apart. Elena smirked from the shadows, knowing the outcome all too well. This group wasn't nearly prepared enough to break a man like Victor out of jail. The failure was inevitable. Next came a more organized attempt. Police officers who were looking to capitalize on the same promise of $100 million. These officers had long been disillusioned with the system and had their own vendettas against the justice system. They knew the ins and outs of the prison, and for them, this was a chance to strike back at a world they had long been a part of. But Elena's spies were already on the move. They had eyes and ears everywhere, and every step the officers took was monitored. Elena, ever the strategist, tipped off the authorities, knowing full well that the officers would be ambushed. As they made their way toward the prison, their plan was thwarted before it even began. They were arrested on their way, caught before they could even attempt the rescue. The law had caught up with them, and their ill-fated attempt dissolved under the weight of their own corruption. Then, unexpectedly, a new group emerged, one no one had anticipated. A faction of secretaries working within the prison, who had been paid off by Victor's old associates, believed they could work from the inside. Their plan was simple but clever. Unlock a few cell doors, create chaos, and slip Victor out unnoticed in the confusion. It seemed like a foolproof plan. but they hadn't accounted for the prison's advanced security measures. While they succeeded in releasing a few prisoners, they were quickly cornered by armed guards. The alarm sounded, and a firefight broke out. In a desperate attempt, one of the secretaries sent a signal, summoning hundreds more to create confusion. For a brief moment, it seemed like the plan might work, but it wasn't enough. The authorities responded swiftly, and the secretary's plot was crushed. Many were caught, and the escape attempt failed again. Elena had watched all of these attempts unfold, and she knew that none of them had the right approach. She had been preparing her own plan, carefully laying the groundwork. Unlike the others, Elena wasn't rushing in with brute force. She understood that in the world of Victor Duval, timing, precision, and intelligence were the keys to success. She spent weeks building a network of contacts, former prisoners, corrupt guards, and even hackers who could infiltrate the prison's security systems. She used her charm and her reputation to weave a web of trust and secrecy. She had no intention of failing. This wasn't just about breaking Victor out. This was about proving her own worth, reclaiming the power she had once shared with him. Elena's plan was as simple as it was daring. Create a diversion large enough to draw attention away from Victor's location and execute the escape swiftly and without leaving a trace. The chaos would work in their favor, but only if everything was perfectly timed. Elena's plan did not begin with action. It began with patience. After watching the failures of Marco, Julian, the corrupt officers, and the secretaries, Elena understood one brutal truth. Brute force would never free Victor Duval. Every reckless attempt only tightened security, added more eyes, and increased the blood already soaking the ground around the prison. The city was now on edge. Police patrols doubled. Surveillance drones hovered day and night. Roads leading to the prison were constantly monitored. Anyone connected to Victor, even remotely, was questioned. Yet beneath the surface, the underworld was boiling. Victor's words, $100 million to anyone who gets me out of here, had become a curse and a blessing. Men betrayed brothers. Friends sold friends. Entire gangs collapsed under suspicion. Everyone wanted the prize, and no one trusted anyone else. That chaos was exactly what Elena needed. The government knew they were losing control. Intelligence reports warned of growing conspiracies, intercepted communications, and unusual financial movements across the city. It became painfully clear. Keeping Victor in his current prison was no longer an option. A decision was made behind closed doors. Victor Duval would be transferred to Blackridge Maximum Security Facility, a prison designed for criminals who were never meant to leave alive. Blackridge was isolated, surrounded by barren land, armed towers, reinforced steel, and constant aerial surveillance. No civilian routes passed near it. No shortcuts existed. If Victor reached Blackridge, the $100 million promise would die with him. When Victor was informed of the transfer, he didn't panic. He smiled, because he knew something the authorities didn't. The most dangerous place for a prisoner is not inside a prison. It is on the road between two prisons. News of the transfer leaked within hours, and hell broke loose. Groups began forming openly now. No secrecy, no paciencia. Everyone knew time was running out. One syndicate tried bribing convoy planners. They were arrested the same night. Another group attempted to block highways with staged accidents. Police cleared them before the convoy even moved. A mercenary crew tried to ambush a decoy convoy. They were wiped out by armed response units within minutes. Even worse, 2 senior prison officials were exposed after secretly altering duty rosters. They were dragged away in handcuffs before sunrise. Each failure tightened security further. Each failure thinned the competition. Elena watched all of it unfold, silent, unseen, untouched. Elena did not chase Victor. She chased systems. She gathered people who never appeared in police files. People who didn't carry guns unless necessary. People who understood timing better than force. She assembled a hacker who specialized in infrastructure, not cameras but power grids. A former tactical transport officer who knew how convoys reacted under stress. A logistics expert who understood reroute psychology. Two insiders who controlled scheduling data, not security. Her plan had 3 layers: misdirection, make everyone look the wrong way; delay, force decisions under pressure; precision, act only once and disappear. She leaked false information about tunnel routes. Authorities reinforced underground access. She spread rumors of a helicopter extraction.
Airspace surveillance intensified.
She allowed other groups to keep failing, because every failure made the authorities predictable. The morning Victor Duval was moved, the city felt different. 6 armored vehicles, 2 decoy convoys, 1 real prisoner. Victor sat quietly in the transport vehicle, hands chained, expression unreadable. He could hear the hum of engines, the murmur of armed men, the tension in every breath. He knew Elena was close. An accident
He could
ahead.
feel it.
Then
Halfway
suddenly,
through the
darkness.
journey, traffic
Power went
slowed.
out across multiple districts. Traffic lights failed. Surveillance feeds lagged. Communication lines stuttered. The convoy commander ordered an immediate reroute. That was the opening. A truck jackknifed across the alternate road. Smoke filled the air. Then came gunfire, but not chaos. Precision shots. Escort vehicles disabled. Tires blown. Engines stalled. Victor felt the transport jolt violently, then stop. Silence. The door opened. Elena stood there, calm, focused, alive. "Let's go," she said. Gunfire erupted again as her team moved like shadows. Smoke grenades, controlled bursts, no wasted motion. They didn't fight everyone. They carved a corridor. Victor was moved, fast, through a drainage route, into another vehicle, then transferred again within minutes. By the time reinforcements arrived, the convoy was empty. Victor Duval was gone. Elena took Victor to a private, hidden mansion far from the city. No cameras, no neighbors, no records. Inside, Victor laughed. A deep, satisfied sound. "You delivered," he said. The money was brought out. Cases upon cases. $100 million. Elena accepted it without emotion. She left quietly, met her crew, and shared the money silently. No celebration. No noise. Everyone disappeared into separate paths. But freedom never lasts. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story so far, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss how this ends. The first night Victor Duval spent as a free man felt unreal. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. No sirens, no shouting guards, no iron doors slamming shut. Just marble floors, soft lighting, and the distant sound of wind brushing against tall glass windows. Victor stood alone in the living room, staring at the city lights far below. Freedom had always been loud to him, music, money, movement, but now it was silent, heavy. Behind him, the echo of prison walls still lingered. Elena had already left. She didn't wait for gratitude. She didn't stay for celebration. She took the money, distributed it quietly to her crew, and vanished into the night exactly the way she had planned. For the first time in a long time, Victor Duval was alone. A city on lockdown. By morning, the city had become a cage. The confirmation of Victor's escape sent shockwaves through every level of authority. Emergency meetings were called. Federal units deployed. Borders tightened. Airports froze outgoing flights. Every system Elena had manipulated was now being rebuilt. Slowly, methodically, angrily. This wasn't just about Victor anymore. This was about embarrassment. Governments could forgive crime. They could not forgive humiliation. Elena's crew felt invincible for exactly one day. The money was real, life-changing, enough to disappear forever. But money had weight and every dollar carried attention. Small mistakes began appearing. A sudden luxury car purchase. A large cash deposit. A careless phone call. Elena warned them to stay quiet. Some listened. Some didn't. Greed has a voice, and it always speaks louder than caution. Victor believed he was ahead of everyone. He planned his next moves carefully, new routes, new identities, new alliances. But he underestimated one thing. He was no longer the hunter. He was the prize. Every step he took was being tracked, not through force but through patterns. Power usage, supply deliveries, surveillance gaps closing one by one. The mansion that once felt untouchable began to feel exposed. Victor felt it too. Freedom had started to taste like fear. The Lakelander task force moved silently. They didn't raid. They didn't rush. They waited. They followed money trails. They watched faces. They listened without reacting. Elena's network, once invisible, began unraveling thread by thread. One crew member was arrested at a border checkpoint. Another was picked up during a routine traffic stop. Another simply disappeared. Elena knew the end was coming. She didn't run. She prepared. It happened without gunfire. No explosions. No chaos. Just doors opening. Victor was taken first. Dragged out of the mansion he thought would protect him. The same hands that once held him in the courtroom now held him again. He didn't shout this time. He didn't promise money. He said nothing. Elena was arrested hours later, calm, composed, unresisting. Her crew followed, one by one, until the entire operation that once looked unstoppable was reduced to names on paper. The city exhaled. The courtroom was quieter now. No cheers. No whispers of opportunity. Victor stood where he had stood before, but weaker, smaller, older. The judge spoke. Life sentences were handed down. No loopholes. No transfers. No second chances. As Victor was led away, cameras flashed. But he didn't look at them. The promise that once shook the city now echoed hollowly in his memory. $100 million. A fortune that bought chaos. But not freedom. In her cell, Elena sat alone. She didn't regret the plan. She didn't regret the execution. She regretted the lie they all believed, that money was power. Money had given them speed. It had given them courage. But it had also made them visible. And visibility was death. Victor Duval thought money could bend the world. Elena thought intelligence could outsmart it. The underworld thought greed could save them. All of them were wrong. Because power attracts attention. Greed invites exposure. And no fortune is big enough to erase consequence. The promise of $100 million changed everything. And in the end, destroyed everyone who chased it. Victor Duval returned to prison. Not as a king, but as a lesson. Elena returned to silence. Not as a mastermind, but as a warning. And the city returned to normal, carrying the memory of a truth it would never forget. Freedom cannot be bought, and every promise has a price. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this.